Manaupiri Tuarangi, ngā rangatira mā, ngā iwi o te motu, ngā mihi mahana kia koutou katoa. Visitors from afar, our respected guests, people of New Zealand, my warm greetings to all of you. May I greet in particular the Speaker of the House, the Honourable Margaret Wilson, and the Honourable Marion Hobbs, all our other many dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you this morning, this terrible morning, to Government House, and I hope that you're not too uncomfortably wet as you sit here. I hope you'll be warm enough during the course of the morning. But I know that you're going to enjoy the ceremony and our hospitality, and I know too that it will be a memorable day for each one of you. Ladies and gentlemen, I have it on command of the Queen to hold an investiture on her behalf and to confer the honour of Member of the Order of New Zealand on the Right Honourable Jonathan Hutt of Auckland. I have it on command also to present the other recipients here assembled, the insignia, decorations and medals to which they are entitled. All of you have, in various ways, rendered distinguished service to New Zealand, to the Commonwealth and to the Queen. Ladies and gentlemen, as each recipient is honoured, may I invite you to join me in thanking them for their services and in congratulating them on their well-merited awards. I will now ask the official secretary and the director of the Honours Secretariat to summon those whom Her Majesty has chosen to honour.
Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of a Member of the Order of New Zealand, the Right Honourable Jonathan Hutt of Auckland, for services to Parliament and as Speaker of the House of Representatives. Mr. Hutt was a Member of Parliament from 1966 until this year and was the longest-serving member of the House of Representatives. He was Deputy, then Acting Speaker, before being elected Speaker of the House of Representatives in 1999. He was re-elected to this position in 2002. His many positions in Parliament include Member for New Lynn, Junior Government Whip, Permanent Member of New Zealand Interparliamentary Group, Negotiator for the Labour Party Coalition Negotiating Team, Member and Chairman of many House Committees, Chairman of the Parliamentary Services Commission, Senior Opposition Whip, a Minister of the Crown and a Leader of the House. Mr. Hutt was appointed a Privy Councillor in 1989. Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of a Distinguished Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit, Professor Don Bevan, C.B.E. of Christchurch, for services to persons with diabetes. Professor Bevan was Foundation Chair of Medicine at the Christchurch Clinical School of Medicine and was Physician in charge of diabetes services of the North Canterbury Hospital Board. In the 1960s, he was involved in a drive to develop diabetes support structures around the country and was a foundation member of the Medical Advisory Committee of Diabetes New Zealand. He helped establish the first Diabetes Education Centre in Christchurch and was a founding member of the New Zealand Society for the Study of Diabetes. Professor Bevan also established the Princess Margaret Hospital Medical Unit and the Canterbury Medical Research Foundation. Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of a Companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit, Mrs. Cheryl Wells of Auckland, for services to netball. Mrs. Wells was appointed manager of the Vodafone Silver Ferns in 1992 and has worked with 4 different coaches during that time. She has been on the management team to 3 Commonwealth Games, 3 World Championships and several overseas tours. She was coordinator for the Trans-Tasman Series in 1990. In 1980, Mrs. Wells was awarded the Auckland Netball Service Award, in 1994 the Netball New Zealand Service Award, and in 1995 the Alwyn Moon Memorial Trophy for services to sport. Mr. Michael Wintringham of Waikanae for Public Services, lately as State Services Commissioner. Mr. Wintringham has held many senior positions in a career covering both the public and private sectors. He began his public service career in the Treasury, where he worked for 16 years, after which he took up a position with Hay Management Consultants, later becoming their director. He coordinated the major restructuring of the health system undertaken by the government in 1990. Following service as Assistant Auditor General responsible for the central government and education sectors, he was appointed Chief Executive of the Ministry of Housing in 1996 and a year later was appointed State Services Commissioner. Mr. Wintringham was reappointed State Services Commissioner in 2002, a position from which he retired last year.
Your Excellency, to receive the New Zealand Bravery Star, Constable Damien Claus, New Zealand Police. On the evening of 16 June 1999, Constable Claus was patrolling alone in Petone when he saw a van that had previously been reported stolen. He stopped the van, which contained 8 young people, and approached the driver. As he did so, the driver presented a sawn-off shotgun at him, resting the weapon on the windowsill only a foot or so from the constable. The driver pulled the trigger, but the firearm did not discharge. Constable Claus returned quickly to his police car and called for assistance. The van left the scene at speed and Constable Claus followed. In East Street, Petone, the van turned and drove back towards Constable Claus, ramming his vehicle and pushing the driver's side into a concrete wall. The constable was forced to leave his car by the passenger's door and, fearing for his safety, left the scene on foot, pursued by the van. The constable took cover behind a trailer while the van first passed him and then returned again. Constable Claus left the cover of the trailer and ran along the street, pursued by the van with the occupants abusing him and threatening his life. The driver fired the shotgun at Constable Claus but missed him. The van then left the scene. The driver was subsequently convicted of attempting to murder Constable Claus. Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of a Companion of the Queen's Service Order for Community Service, Mrs. Barbara Stewart of Christchurch. Mrs. Stewart has been on the Waikanae District Council and the Christchurch City Council for 12 years. As a councillor, she served on the Environment, Community Service, Central City and Strategy and Finance Committees. She was a committee member of the Christchurch Symphony Orchestra for 10 years, including 5 as chair, and was also on the board of Canterbury Opera. She was a government appointee on the Southern Regional Arts Council, a member of the major fundraising committee for the Christchurch Art Gallery, and was herself a major contributor. She has been involved with many local groups, including Selwyn House, the Christchurch City Mission, the Brain Injury Association, and the Kate Shepherd National Memorial Committee. Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of an Officer of the New Zealand Order of Merit, Mr. Vernon Clark of Lincoln, for services to agriculture and the community. Mr. Clark has given many years of outstanding service to research and education and voluntary community service. He cooperated in the development of the Coopworth breed of sheep and was awarded the Bledisloe Medal in 1989 by Lincoln University. His other research interests included animal nutrition and behaviour. He has been Secretary of the Coopworth Breed Sheep Society and Inspector, Advisor and Patron of the Australian and USA Coopworth Breed Societies. Mr. Clark has been involved with many organisations in Lincoln and has been District President of the RSA for 5 years. Miss Caroline EVERS-SWINDELL and Miss Georgina EVERS-SWINDELL of Cambridge for services to rowing. The EVERS-SWINDELL twins are the current world champions in the women's double sculls and between them have won over 30 national rowing titles. They broke the world record for the double sculls at the 2002 World Championships, were named Female Crew of the Year in 2003 by the International Rowing Federation, won the Holberg Award in 2001 and the Lonsdale Cup in 2003. Their many sporting achievements together include World Rowing Championships in 2002 and 2003, and more recently, a gold medal at the Athens Olympic Games in 2004. Dr. Arthur Hackett of Mount Maunganui for public services. Dr. Hackett, a retired surgeon, has been a member of the Planning Tribunal and later a Commissioner of the Environment Court since 1986. In this role, he has specialised in freshwater and marine ecology, health sciences and the location of health facilities. Dr. Hackett had previously been a consultant full-time surgeon for the Waikato Hospital Board for 11 years and was also a member of the Rotorua City Council for 9 years. Mr. Gary Lennon of Christchurch for services to education, sport and the community. Mr. Lennon has taught at St. Bede's College for the last 29 years. During this time, he has served as head of the History Department, Senior Dean and Deputy Rector. He coached many sports teams, including the local senior rugby team, the Christchurch Secondary School's representative rugby team, the St. Bede's First 11 cricket and First 15 rugby teams, and the Southern Regional Secondary School's rugby team. He has seen at least 14 of his former players go on to become All Blacks. Mr. Lennon was also chairman of the Catholic Church Parish Council and a volunteer helper with the local playgroup, Plunket Society, Little Unity Theatre and Cancer Society. Mr. Joseph MOODABE of Auckland for services to the film industry and the community. Mr. MOODABE has been involved in the cinema industry for 50 years and has been a major influence in the development of a strong and thriving exhibition industry in New Zealand, overseeing the building of many multiplexes throughout the country. His company, Village Sky City, runs some 60% of the country's cinemas. He supports and encourages emerging local talent and filmmakers, giving script advice and providing screen space for new releases. He has supported a wide range of causes, providing previews, premieres and screenings for charity fundraising on a regular basis. He is a major supporter of Variety, the children's charity, and of Women in Film and Television New Zealand. Mr. MOODABE is a member of the New Zealand Film and Video Licensing Board.
Your Excellency, to receive the insignia of a member of the New Zealand Order of Merit, Mr. Murray Anderson of Ashburton, for services to local government. Mr. Anderson was Mayor of Ashburton District Council for 9 years until 2004. He was elected as a councillor in 1980 and as Mayor in 1995. He is Ashburton District Council's representative on the Canterbury Regional Council, as well as a member of the Canterbury Community Roads and the Regional Council's Land Transport Committee. Mrs. Barbara Arnold of Palmerston North for services to the environment. Mrs. Arnold has demonstrated a commitment to the environment through her involvement with the National Council of Women and Guides New Zealand, as well as through her appointments to conservation boards. In 1998, she was elected as the convener of the Environment Standing Committee of the National Council of Women, and in 1981 was selected by Guides New Zealand to attend an international guiding conference in Mexico to discuss environmental issues. In 2002, she was awarded a New Zealand Teacher Fellowship by the Royal Society. She has been a member of the Rangitike Hawke's Bay Conservation Board, the Taranaki Waikanae Conservation Board, and since 1995 has been a member of the Palmerston North City Council Environmental Trust. Mrs. Arnold has also been a member of the Mountain Safety Council. Mr. Allan Bean of Christchurch for services to spinal injuries medicine and rehabilitation. Mr. Bean has devoted his working life to spinal injuries medicine and rehabilitation. He was one of the founding clinicians at the Spinal Injuries Unit at Christchurch Public Hospital, now at Burwood Hospital. He is an authority on the management of spinal injuries and was instrumental in persuading the rugby union to develop safer scrummaging techniques, thereby reducing the likelihood of serious neck injury. Mr. Bean has been awarded a fellowship of the Faculty of Rehabilitation Medicine by the Royal Australasian College of Physicians. Lieutenant Colonel William Blaikie, New Zealand Z Intelligence Corps of Upper Hutt. In January 2004, Major, now Lieutenant Colonel Blaikie, was appointed to a senior staff position at the Combined Forces Command Afghanistan, based in Kabul, as part of the New Zealand contribution to Operation Enduring Freedom. He played a significant role in guiding the command's growing intelligence effort towards meeting the insurgency threat. He helped build the organisation working within the United States military system, and on his own initiative established the Security Analysis Group, which comprised representatives from all organisations with security interests in Afghanistan. The group has had a major impact on improving information sharing and on situational awareness, as well as in operational planning and the subsequent execution of a wide variety of counterinsurgency activities. Mrs. Esther Cowley-MALCOLM of Auckland for services to Pacific Island families. Mrs. Cowley-MALCOLM manages the Pacifica Research and Workforce Development Unit at the Auckland University of Technology. She is the chair of the Pacific Development and Conservation Trust and member of New Zealand Laboratory Technologists Board. She has a significant history of service to her community, including the Waikanae City Council Pacific Islands Advisory Board, National Secretary and President of the Auckland Central Branch of Pacifica, and member of the Wesley College Board of Trustees. Mr. Bevan Doherty of Auckland for services to sport, especially as a triathlete. Mr. Doherty is the current world champion triathlete. He has competed internationally since 1997 and has won first placing and 5 second placings at World Cup events. His major achievements include winning the silver medal at the Olympic Games 2004, a gold medal at the World Championships in 2004, and a gold medal at the European Cup in 2000.
Thank you, Chair. 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 Thank you, Cha
Mr. Ben Fui of Taumarunui for services to kayaking. Mr. Fui became a world champion kayaker in 2003. He began serious training for sprint kayaking in 2002 after competing in marathon canoeing, Ironman and coast-to-coast events. He has won 4 national sprint titles and is current K1 1,000 metre, 500 metre and K2 1,000 metre national champion. Some of his many sporting achievements include winning a silver medal at the Olympics in 2004, winning gold at the World Championships in 2003, and winning the Hallberg Award for Sportsman of the Year in 2003. Wing Commander Steve Goodman, RNZAF, Upper Hutt. Wing Commander Goodman was appointed the Logistics Branch Head at Headquarters Joint Forces, New Zealand, from its inception, and has ensured the timely logistics support to all New Zealand Defence Force operational deployments. His services were crucial during the establishment phase of the New Zealand Provincial Reconstruction Team in Afghanistan, when the support and services expected in theatre were not available in the scale, quality or scope initially anticipated. He secured the necessary materials and equipment and transported them into the theatre, ensuring they were properly set up before the onset of the Afghan winter. He has served as the Senior National Officer on the highly successful Regional Assistance Mission in the Solomon Islands, where the Australian Commander of Combined Task Force 635 awarded him a commendation for his exceptional leadership. Mr. John Henderson of Dunedin for services to cricket and the community. Mr. Henderson's involvement with cricket began in the 1950s and has included secondary school and provincial representation, various positions on the Otago Cricket Association, membership of the New Zealand Cricket Board of Control, chairman of the New Zealand Junior Cricket Board, and chairman of the Otago Cricket Trust. He has been a member of the Dunedin Rotary Club since 1978, holding various positions, and he represented Otago at badminton from 1968 to 1972. Mr. Henderson worked as an engineer for the Dunedin City Council and was the author of the civil defence scenario for dealing with an earthquake event in Dunedin. Mr. Roger Horrocks of Auckland for services to the film and television industries. Mr. Horrocks has been active in the New Zealand film and television industries for over 25 years. He is head of department at the Centre for Film, Television Media Studies at the University of Auckland and has been deputy chairman of the New Zealand Broadcasting Commission. He has been involved in film festivals, film societies and many aspects of media education. He has lectured on literature and media studies and is the author of a biography of the filmmaker and artist Len Lai. Squadron Leader Ian Moa, RNZAF of Waitakere City. Squadron Leader Moa joined the Naval Replacement Helicopter Project in 1997 and has since filled related posts at Carmen Aerospace in Connecticut, USA, the Directorate of Aeronautical Engineering, and lately the Sea Sprite Operating Unit as the first Maintenance Flight Commander of Naval Support Flight. He has devoted a great deal of his time to the introduction of this aircraft type into the Royal New Zealand Air Force and has been involved in all technical, test and operational aspects of the process, from design to the frontline introduction to service. He provided support for 3 aircraft deployments to Operation Enduring Freedom, while also providing support for deployments to Australia, Southeast Asia, and for resupply tasks to the Southern Ocean and Kermadec Islands. During this time, he has filled many posts of a higher rank and has consistently gone beyond the call of duty. Mrs. Tracy Richardson of Napier, for services to persons with cystic fibrosis. Mrs. Richardson raised the profile of cystic fibrosis and created a successful fundraising campaign by overcoming her own health problems, undertaking to complete the Ironman New Zealand triathlon, and convincing Ironman New Zealand to promote cystic fibrosis as their only ever official charity. She won the Franchisee of the Year Award in 1996 for her inspiring efforts in business before retiring to care for her 2 children. Her story was profiled on TVNZ's Sunday program, Next magazine, and other publications. In October 2004, she competed in the Ironman World Championships to raise awareness of cystic fibrosis and featured on a number of TV shows in the USA, including The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. Mr. David Tai of Lower Hutt, for services to the Chinese community. Mr. Tai has been National President of the New Zealand Chinese Association since 2002 and helped organise the government's apology to the Chinese community for the poll tax of the 19th century. He has been involved in the community for a number of years as chairman and member of the Helen Lowry Hall of Residence, Wellington Chinese Sports and Cultural Centre, founding member of the Wellington Xiamen Association, president of Access Radio, and founding member of the Wellington Chinese Speech and Cultural Day. Mr. Tai has been an examiner on the Engineers Registration Board and the chairperson of the Mechanical Engineering Group of IPENS.
Your Excellency, to receive the New Zealand Bravery Decoration, Mr. Geoffrey Knight, lately Constable, New Zealand Police of Tapanui. Shortly after midnight on the 4th of June 2001, Constable Knight attended a violent domestic incident near Tapanui. The 2 occupants of a house had been traumatised by the actions of the male occupant's brother, who had broken into the house and assaulted the male occupant, causing serious injury. He threatened to kill the female occupant and her children and attempted to open their firearms cabinet. The female occupant and children sought safety in a bedroom and, unable to gain access to them, the intruder retreated, armed himself with a knife and threatened to kill those in the house. At this point, Constable Knight arrived alone and called for police backup, which he knew would be up to 30 to 40 minutes away. The intruder reappeared, resisted arrest and engaged in a violent struggle with Constable Knight, who managed to restrain him for approximately 30 minutes until local fire brigade members arrived to assist. Your Excellency, to receive the New Zealand Gallantry Medal, Corporal Gerald Fenton, Royal New Zealand Infantry Regiment of Christchurch. On the 10th of August 2000 in East Timor, Corporal Fenton was attached as a signaller to a Nepalese platoon. While carrying out a patrol on the border between East and West Timor, part of the platoon came under fire from a militia group and sustained casualties. The Nepalese platoon commander immediately responded by moving the remainder of the patrol towards the contact site. As this was taking place, they too came under fire. As the only English-speaking signaller on the scene, Corporal Fenton provided the crucial communications link to both the battalion headquarters and to the helicopters called in to evacuate the Nepalese casualties. That this evacuation was successfully completed was in no small part due to Corporal Fenton's actions. Despite the immediate threat to his life during this incident, Corporal Fenton remained in close proximity to an English-speaking officer so that he could relay information immediately to New Zealand and Australian operational staff of the battalion. Throughout the incident, the language barrier made his personal safety precarious and his task much more difficult to carry out. Your Excellency, to receive the New Zealand Bravery Medal, Mr. Pat Burke, lately Detective, New Zealand Police of Cambridge. On the 31st of August 1999, Detective Burke was on patrol by himself in an unmarked police car when he was advised that a man had shot and wounded a woman at a nearby address in Stoke. The offender had left the address, hijacked a car, causing injury to the driver, and driven off. Shortly afterwards, Detective Burke noticed the offender pass him going in the opposite direction. He turned his vehicle around and chased the offender's car. The man continued into an industrial site where he stopped suddenly, opened his door and emerged carrying a shotgun. Detective Burke, who was unarmed, stopped his car only 4 metres away from the offender, opened his door, stood up and called 3 times for the man to drop the firearm. The man then placed the muzzle of the gun in his mouth and fired the weapon, severely wounding himself. He was later convicted of the attempted murder of the woman. Sergeant Graham Ford, New Zealand Police of Auckland. On the 17th of November 2001, the police were called to a violent domestic incident in Northcote, Auckland. By the time Sergeant Ford arrived, a man had already assaulted 2 women, threatened to kill everyone present with a large carving knife, thrown a television set at a police constable and resisted pepper spray. Sergeant Ford observed the man lifting his 1-month-old daughter into the air with one hand while holding the knife in the other. Sergeant Ford and his staff forcibly entered the house and instructed the man to drop the knife, at which point the man partly undressed the baby, exposing her chest while making motions to stab her. Pepper spray was again used, but was only effective in distracting the man momentarily. Sergeant Ford used this moment to tackle the man, throwing his knife out of reach while the other officers restrained him. The baby was saved from harm, and the offender was subsequently convicted of numerous offences. Mr. David O'Loughlin of Raglan. At about 1:15 p.m. on the 11th of July 2002, Mr. O'Loughlin and a companion were in a vehicle driving along State Highway 1 between Whakapara and Hukaranui. Immediately in front of him was a vehicle containing 2 women. Suddenly, the women's vehicle veered to the left, careered over a metal guard barrier and off the side of a bridge. The vehicle then travelled some distance in the swollen river before coming to rest almost fully submerged. Mr. O'Loughlin immediately stopped and, without regard for his own safety, plunged into the water and managed to rescue one of the women from the sinking vehicle. He brought her back to safety of the riverbank and then returned to the then submerged vehicle to attempt to rescue the other woman. He made about 5 attempts but was unsuccessful. He and his companion then comforted the rescued woman until the police and an ambulance arrived. Your Excellency, the New Zealand Bravery Medal, awarded to the late Mr. Hamish Neal of Waimate, is to be received by his mother, Carol Neal. On the 10th of February 2000, Mr. Hamish Neal, aged 15 years and a student at Waimate High School, was on a school trip to the Waihao River. While swimming in the river at a point known as the Black Hole, a fellow student got into trouble and sank beneath the surface. Mr. Neal swam over to him and attempted to pull him to safety. Mr. Neal was unsuccessful in the attempt and was instead pulled down with him, and both students drowned.
Your Excellency, to receive the Queen's Service Medal for Community Service, Mrs. Hannah Ahotaha of Auckland. Mrs. Ahotaha, who arrived in New Zealand from Niue in 1971, has been a volunteer at the Presbyterian Church Niuean Preschool in Maunganui since 1989. She was Treasurer for 15 years and Chairperson of the Board of Trustees for 8 years. For many years, she has been part of the Matakau Kautaha Maunganui group as a leader and mediator. Mrs. Ahotaha is an active member of the Pacific Islands Presbyterian Church and is a translator for the Pacific Islands Women's Health Project. Mr. Brian Clark of New Plymouth. Mr. Clark has given many years of voluntary work to fundraising and helping develop senior citizens groups, bands, choirs and cultural organisations. He has travelled with the National Band of New Zealand as a compere on overseas trips and has written and produced several successful stage shows for the New Plymouth Operatic Society. He served as a committee member for the Society and on the National Executive of Musical Theatre New Zealand. Mr. Clark received a New Plymouth District Citizens Award in 2002 and in 1984 received the award for the top New Zealand radio announcer in the Mobile Awards. Mrs. Sue Davison of Auckland. Mrs. Davison has been a stalwart supporter of the Royal New Zealand Institute of Horticulture and the Auckland Regional Botanic Gardens for 40 years. She has served on the Auckland Branch Committee of the Institute for over 30 years and was their nominee on the Botanical Gardens Technical Advisory Committee from 1978 to 1981. Mrs. Davison was a foundation member of the Friends of the Auckland Regional Botanic Gardens and since 1992 has had the overall responsibility for the volunteer rosters. Mrs. Joan Finlayson of North Shore City. Mrs. Finlayson has made an important contribution to the North Shore community for many years. She has served on many committees and is a volunteer worker for the Ryder Cheshire Foundation, Red Cross, the North Shore Hospital, Save the Children's Shop, and has been a Meal on Wheels driver for 15 years. She and her husband have together raised over $1 million for various community organisations and were one of the driving forces behind the North Shore Sports Stadium. Mr. Ian Jenkins of Morrinsville. Mr. Jenkins, a dairy farmer, has made a significant contribution to the Matamata Piako community for over 35 years. He has worked as a volunteer at the Morrinsville police station, maintaining the station and police buildings, providing practical assistance to help the settlement of new police arrivals, accompanying the police on patrols, and assisting in prisoner transport. He acts as court attendant at criminal court sittings at the Morrinsville District Court. He has been heavily involved in the Keriona Community's Rural Support Group, Community Hall, and local school. Ms. Helen McLean of Wainganui. Ms. McLean has been the regional representative for World Vision for over 25 years. She has helped organise children's concerts, the 40-hour famine, promotional stands, and has had a presence in youth events. She is choir mistress in her local church and belongs to a string quartet which often plays for charity. She has been a committee member of the Wainganui Music Society, the Chamber Music Society, the Wainganui Scholar Sacra Choir, and a member of the Registered Music Teachers Committee. Ms. McLean played an important part in the establishment of the Wainganui Sinfonietta. Mr. Lyndon Rayner of Dunedin. Mr. Rayner joined the Ariki Amateur Athletic and Harrier Club in 1944, and since that time has been a committee member and club president. He has been coaching athletes since the 1950s, dedicating his free time to preparing individual schedules for the athletes. He has been a member of the Caledonian Society for over 30 years, filling the roles of secretary, treasurer and president, as well as being the delegate to the Otago Scottish Heritage Council. Mr. Rayner was a member of the Otago Rugby Referees Association for 20 years. Mr. Bob Scott of Rotorua. Mr. Scott has had over 50 years of voluntary service in a wide variety of sporting and community organisations, as well as serving the business needs of the local farming community through his top dressing company. He has been involved with the Rotorua RSA since 1946, a trustee of the Continuing Care Trust of the Wharearoha Hospital, chairman of the National Patriotic Canteen Fund Rotorua Zone Committee, and past president of the RNZAF Association. He has been a volunteer Coast Guard for the Rotorua Lakes, Air Cadet League representative for Waikato King Country Bay of Plenty districts, and is a past Commodore of the Rotorua Yacht Club. Mr. Scott is the RSA representative on the Lakeland Health Board.
Your Excellency, to receive the Queen's Service Medal for Public Services, Inspector Janet Hope, New Zealand Police of Orewa. Inspector Hope has served in the New Zealand Police for 25 years and is currently Area Commander for Rodney. She was heavily involved in police planning for the 1990 Commonwealth Games and for the 2000 Millennium celebrations. She has been a court prosecutor, an operations manager for the Bay of Plenty District, and has managed extensive pan-Auckland policing operations on alcohol and crime victimisation. She has represented New Zealand Police internationally and has been very active in supporting the cause of women in policing. Mr. Allan McEnany of Greymouth. Mr. McEnany has been a volunteer firefighter since 1955 and a member of the Cobden and Greymouth Volunteer Fire Brigades. He has been Chief Fire Officer of Greymouth since 1986 and has been involved in such incidents as the Greymouth floods of 1988, the Transwest Depot fire of 1989 and the Cave Creek incident of 1995. He's been president of the West Coast Provincial Fire Brigade Association and has held other executive positions. Mr. McEnany is a past competitor, coach and judge at local, provincial, South Island and national firefighting competitions. Senior Sergeant Murray Morrissey, New Zealand Police of Auckland. Senior Sergeant Morrissey has served in the New Zealand Police for 39 years, 35 of them in the dog section. He currently leads the largest section in Auckland, a position he has held since 1985. The New Zealand Police Dog section has developed an international profile for excellence in the training and deployment of police dogs, and Senior Sergeant Morrissey has played a significant leadership role. He also serves his community in his private life and is very involved in the North Shore Rowing Club. Mr. Mike O'Connor of Palmerston North. Mr. O'Connor has been involved with the sport of hockey since 1958 and was a New Zealand representative in the same year and again in 1961. He also represented New Zealand universities, Wellington, Auckland, Manawatu and Maunganui. He was appointed a life member of the Manawatu Hockey Association in 1990. He was Foundation Deputy Principal and later Principal of Awatapu College, Principal of Queen Elizabeth College and a member of the Secondary School Inspectorate. He was Secretary of the Manawatu Secondary Principals Association and Chairman of several organising committees for Secondary Principals Conferences. Mr. O'Connor was President of the Rotary Club of Te Karo in 1991 and is a committee member of the Palmerston North Return Services Association. Ms Pam Reeder of Wellington. Ms Reeder has been Executive Secretary to the Right Honourable Jonathan Hunt since 1993 and has supported him in his roles as a Minister of the Crown and Speaker of the House of Representatives. She was previously personal assistant to Chairman, Chief Executives and Senior Directors of Radio New Zealand for over 20 years. She has been a long-time and tireless worker for musical theatre in Wellington and in an administrative support role has made a significant contribution to nurturing and developing young musical and dance talent. Your Excellency, the investiture is now concluded.
Those whom we have honoured today are distinguished guests, their family and friends. Twice a year, I have the very great honour of meeting a small number of people from all corners of New Zealand who have come to Government House for their investiture. While my duties as Governor-General encompass a very wide range of activities, for me, these ceremonies are among the most important events of the year. In a world where success is often measured in material terms, it is important to recognise and to celebrate achievements that have benefited the community or have given us a sense of pride in being New Zealanders. This occasion, when we have a public opportunity to show our admiration and our gratitude to those who have done so much for our country, is therefore of great importance. I am particularly pleased that we have among us people from all walks of life, from a wide age group and from a wide variety of occupations. Some of you have already had recognition for your work, but for others this may be the first time. Among you are a courageous few who have received awards for bravery. For some, whether your award has been conferred for service or for courage, your acts have been performed in the line of duty. For others, you have acted out of compassion or from a strong sense of desire to help other people. One thing that I can say is that for all of you, the honour you have received today is well deserved. You have been selected for what you have done, whether on the spur of the moment or during long months or years of work, helping or guiding others. Our honours system reflects genuinely New Zealand values, and it is based on merit and merit alone. Our honours recognise achievement on behalf of and for all New Zealanders. They recognise community involvement, selfless dedication, bravery, contribution to sports, to the arts, to theatre, ingenuity, intelligence, talent. This gathering makes this a special occasion. For me, for you, the recipients of these honours, and for the whole of New Zealand. For this is a day when we as a nation can celebrate the achievements of those who have done so much for us. You display the very best of our national character. I know that your work and your example inspire other New Zealanders to work creatively, tirelessly and selflessly as each of you have done. Many of you have done so in a way that humbles me and all who hear of your endeavours. It has been a great privilege for me to confer these honours on each of you today. On behalf of all New Zealanders, I congratulate you again for what you have achieved and thank you for what you have done for your fellow citizens. I'm now going to ask you to rise and join me in the singing of the national anthem, first in Māori and then in English. When we have done that, this formal part of the ceremony will be over. You can all relax and enjoy this beautiful house, which belongs to all New Zealanders, and also enjoy our hospitality. So please now rise and join me in singing the national anthem. Well, that's the formal part of the ceremony over. I hope you will now relax and enjoy yourselves. I can't invite you to go out and look at the grounds. You can if you wish, but the rest of the ground floor of the house is available for you to walk through and enjoy yourselves. Thank you all for coming.